morning. I am Pierre Pezziardi. I am, among other things, the founding partner of a unique crowdfunding platform called Hello Merci. Formerly, I was the founder of a large consulting company called Octo, and I also was the CIO of a large bank called Labred.
Your presentation had a lot to do with many of the principles of the lean startup. You're talking about the MVP, for example, and others. A question that I have for you is the lean startup movement, which is something that everybody's talking about now, and of course, lean IT, as per the third summit in 3 consecutive years. So there's a lot of interest in that as well, but they're still, I would say, quite young within the lean community, let's just say, as concepts. So what do you think are the struggles that that startups and lean IT find more often to actually be applied in companies?
I think, lean IT or lean startups are just words and that can relate to either tools or culture. So you can easily put tools in existing organization or existing culture, and you put a new tool, a value stream map, and this does not change a lot. So many people are claiming they are agile, lean IT, whatever. Well, they are hype, actually. They are using the tools. The lean culture, whether it is lean IT, lean startup, which is basically depending on the context, requires a change in the culture. And, culture changes rather slowly. If I ask you to change something profound, something deep that you are doing for years now, and I ask you, I have a better way, you are doing A with your child, for instance. And I say, Roberto, you should do B. That would be very hard to change because you're doing this for 10 years. So you go through a denial phase and anger, then bargaining with me. No, I'm doing A, but okay, it's almost B. Then depression, and then acceptation. This is the normal cycle of a change. And whether it is lean IT, lean startup, it requires a huge change from our current habits. So you will see many people claiming they're doing lean IT, but they have not changed their culture. And they are still obeying old patterns, and they put words, they will destroy the words, by the way, because I am doing a minimum viable product, but it took me 2 years. I am agile, but my cycles are 6 months. Yeah. And I see that everywhere. Lean as tools, there's lean as culture. So there is a real bottleneck, which is culture, and you cannot change the culture like this. So the bottleneck is here, and if you want to change the culture, you should look at young people. They are the guys that will change the culture.
Right. Can you tell us a little bit about Hello Merci and how, of course, you gave the presentation. If we can tell something about to people who weren't here today. Yeah. Is it true there was four people that started it and then developed it? If you can tell us a little bit of what it does.
Yeah, the lean startup principles shows that you can do something huge with a small team. We were 4. We had 2 programmers. One guy dealing with banking aspects and complex mathematical, financial calculations, those stuff. He was the engineer of the band, and a product owner, which I was the product owner. And as I mentioned in the presentation, the product owner is also a sales representative. If he's not a sales representative, he won't go on the stage like Steve Jobs and say, look, I have a product, I know you are my customers, that's many times I saw you, I discussed with you, and I make this product for you. If you are not a sales representative listening to customers, and this is my definition of minimum viable product, it's a deal between future customers. So the team was basically very small, and with that, to have orders of magnitude. We built a crowd lending platform, which is basically a website connected with a banking infrastructure, able to credit or debit accounts anywhere in Europe, and we leverage the very important single euro payment area, which is a big asset that we have here. This is the TCP/IP of bank. This is very important. So we leverage this, and we built iteratively this product, gathering also expertises like design, especially in design, because we had no designers. So 6 months, 4 people, and an iterative process, production of the software connected with early adopters as a process.
This idea of the minimum viable product, it's very interesting. How important is communication? Well, because you say it's a deal with your customer, you need to explain very clearly that, you know, you were showing us the beta version of the website. So how important is communicating with those early adopters?
That's the core. That's why I see many product owners that are actually product clerks. I mean, they are using Lean or Agile as a tool. And they're using the new word. I'm not the... before it used to be called a maîtrise d'ouvrage or something, but now I am a product owner. But they have not changed. They have not, they still don't know their customers. They haven't listened to pains and try, and with determination, try to solve pains of their customers. That's what we try to do. I am the product owner. Why? Because I've been in the financial. I know there is a big problem with the funding of small initiatives, small business. Actually, at least here in France, and banks do not lend money to small business or risky business, risky things. So this is a real bottleneck for the economy. So I knew there was a pain, and I could feel it. And now, from day one, when I started this, I had I will tell you the concrete story so that you can understand. I have connected very soon with, you know, people in several areas that are dealing with such projects. Actually, they are living in what we call the chambres des métiers, the chambres de commerce. I mean, you probably that in professions, you know, they are dealing, and they are responsible for helping the projects to emerge. And I started conversations with them. Would you like a new tool, a new hammer? You have the hammer of the bank, you have the hammer of your own money, etc. You have, okay, it's a tool, but I have a complementary tool, maybe. What do you think? And I started this conversation with somebody I would like to name. His name is Olivier Sanche. He works for the Parc Naturel, natural park of de la Haute-Chevreuse. And he was dealing with such projects. And I had the chance to work with him and to build the product with him. So actually, he is the first customer.
There you go.
He is the first customer.
Great. Another thing you were referring to during your presentation was big corporations, and you said, I think you said something like we can put a Wikipedia inside every large corporation. So do you see, this is a question with two really streams in it. Like the first thing would be, what can big corporations learn from a startup or from a very small organizations in the context of a summit like this, for example? And second, I would ask you, do you think that every large corporation will have somehow to adopt somehow this type of principles if they are to survive in the future?
Probably for the second question. Let's go back to the first. You know, I have a proverb that empires don't change; they crumble, and it's often the case in history. The Roman empires or others, and so most empires, large corporates today, they ignore that. They ignore what is big, what is because the startup is small. Okay, it's interesting what I talked about, but banks are lending this, I'm lending this. Okay, so one day probably I will lend more. But they mostly have this despise towards such initiatives. There is no process for innovation inside large corporates, despite the fact that you can see on the walls, innovate together. Oh, this is the ID box, you should put your ID. But this is, when you this is the tree that hides the forest. And behind the forest you got the department, the division, mistrust, disempowerment. And this doesn't change. This doesn't change, and nobody wants it to change, especially if you are at the upper level of the hierarchy. You belong to the system. You were promoted by this system. So naturally, you don't want the system to change. This is the natural reaction of empires towards innovators, and this is the millennial fight between empires and barbarians. But what I could say, and this is your second question, is that, yeah, I wouldn't say it, oh, you should do that or die. That's useless anyway, because they have the power, we don't have the power. So they will laugh at us if we say it this way. But we can say, hey guys, why you agree with me that you have bureaucracy concerns? Any CEO can, when I say that way, any CEO will say, yeah, I know, Pierre. Okay, so you have concerns. So what if you tolerated for 1 year, for instance, with a fixed budget, any innovation that you haven't planned yourself, you are the big boss, you are the most clever guy, but, well, let's assume somebody at the factory knows something that he may solve a pain, spending $1,000, or spending $200,000 in 1 year. Well, those small innovations. What if we allowed the people to do some, what we could call corporate startups? That they would achieve some, not global goals, that it does the change program management, blah, blah, blah. I mean, that never succeeds, but rather small objectives, but fast. And like we did. I mean, there is nothing impossible in that. So I would rather talk to corporates like this, saying, what if you tolerated such kind of bottom-up innovation with fixed budgets, leaving the people autonomous with, you can do whatever you want, we will judge at the end. So you have the budget, you don't go through the purchasing department, you don't go through the IT department, you go to the cloud, you do that autonomously. Autonomous responsibility, and this can change something, and this can be audible, can be heard by large corporates, and I promote that rather than say you'll die.
One final question that I have for you. You've worked in a large organization before. You were saying before starting startups, really. I've come across recently like a project of a big retailer, and they're trying to revolutionize their IT function, basically. And it's a mess because they are outsourcing it to like 5 different people. And so I wonder, what do you think are the most common mistakes that like large organizations make when they try to change?
Vanity.
Vanity.
I would say vanity. Do something smaller, but that works. Always do something smaller, but that works. Never do a big SAP rollout. Never do a big change management program, blah, 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 blah. This always face the culture concern that we talked earlier. You can't change the culture like this. Even if you have good ideas, you bark. So do the change wherever there is somebody really willing to change.
So small incremental improvements.
Small incremental improvement. So vanity is your worst enemy. Because nobody wants to do things rather than plan things or be the project manager of a large international change program. rather than a small change agent that does something at the shop floor.
Okay.
Right.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you.